There is a difference between sex and gender. Sex refers to the biological distinctions between males and females, and gender is the culturally defined ways of acting, male or female. What sets females and males apart are differences in their bodies. Right from birth, the two sexes have different primary sex characteristics, namely the genitals, which is your organs used for reproduction. Then at puberty, as people reach sexual maturity, there is additional sex differentiation that begins to take place. At this point, people develop secondary sex characteristics, which is your body development apart from the genitals that distinguishes biologically mature males and females. For example, males begin to have deeper voices. They begin to develop more muscle in the upper body. There's more extensive body hair. Females begin to have wider hips. They begin to develop breasts, and we can continue on with differences in the sexes. Now, sex is not always as clear cut as that. We do have what is known as intersexual people. These refer to people whose bodies, including their genitals, have both male and female characteristics. An older term for intersexual people is hermaphrodite. A true hermaphrodite has both a female ovary and a male testis. Tens of thousands of intersexual people are born in the United States with some combination of both male and female genitals, and there is no specific pattern that applies to all. Transsexuals are people who feel like they are one sex even though biologically they are the other, and tens of thousands of people in the United States experience the feeling of being trapped in a body of the wrong sex and they desire to be the other sex. Most become transgendered, meaning that they ignore conventional ideas about how males and females should look and behave. And many go one step further and undergo gender reassignment, which is surgical alteration of their genitals, usually with hormone treatment. When it comes to sex, there is one thing that all societies agree. One cultural universal which is found in every society the world over is the incest taboo. This is a norm forbidding sexual relations or marriage between certain relatives. In the United States, the law reflecting cultural mores prohibits close relatives, including brothers and sisters, parents and children, from having sex or marrying. But in another example of cultural variation, exactly which family members are included in a society's incest taboo varies from place to place, even within our own country. To give you an example, there are 24 states in the United States that outlaw marriage between first cousins, but there are 26 states that do not. 19 allow it without restrictions and 7 allow them with restrictions. And the restrictions are you've got to be past your childbearing years. The sexual revolution began in the 1920s as millions of people from farms and small towns migrated to the rapidly growing cities. There, living apart from their families and meeting in the workplace, young men and women enjoyed greater sexual freedom, which is one reason the decade became known as the Roaring Twenties. In the 30s and 40s, the Great Depression and World War II allowed the rate of change, but in the post-war period after 1945, Alfred Kinsey set the stage for what later came to be known as the sexual revolution. In 1948, Kinsey and his colleagues published their first study of sexuality in the United States, and it raised eyebrows everywhere. They revealed that people in the United States, on average, were far less conventional in sexual matters than most had thought. These books encouraged a new openness toward sexuality, which helped set in motion the sexual revolution. In the 1960s, the sexual revolution truly came of age. Youth culture dominated public life, and expressions such as "if it feels good, do it," Sex, drugs, and rock and roll summed up the new, freer attitude towards sex. The baby boom generation, born between 1946 and 1964, became the very first cohort in United States history to grow up with the idea that sex was part of people's lives, whether they were married or not. Technology also played a part in the sexual revolution. The birth control pill, usually referred to as simply the pill, was introduced in 1960. It not only prevented pregnancy, but it also made sex more convenient. Unlike a condom or diaphragm, which has to be used at the time of intercourse, the pill could be taken any time during the day. Now women, as well as men, could engage in sex without any special preparation. The sexual revolution has special meaning for women because historically women were subject to greater sexual regulation than men. And according to the double standard, society allows and even encourages men to be sexually active, but it expects women to be virgins until marriage and faithful to their husbands afterwards. Sexual orientation is a person's romantic and emotional attraction to another person. The norm in all human societies is heterosexuality. This is sexual attraction to someone of the other sex. Yet, in every society, a significant share of people experience homosexuality, which is sexual attraction to someone of the same sex. Bisexuality is sexual attraction to people of both sexes, and asexuality is no sexual attraction to people of either sex. The public's attitude toward homosexuality has been moving toward greater acceptance. In large measure, this change of thinking came about as a result of the gay rights movement. One early milestone for the movement occurred in 1973 when the American Psychiatric Association declared that homosexuality was not an illness but simply a form of sexual behavior. The gay rights movement began using the term homophobia to describe discomfort over close personal interaction with people thought to be gay, lesbian, or bisexual. They also used the term heterosexism, which stigmatizes anyone who is not heterosexual as queer. Your textbook goes over many sexual controversies in the United States. One is teen pregnancy. Because it carries the risk of pregnancy, being sexually active, especially having intercourse, does demand a high level of responsibility. Teenagers may be biologically mature enough to conceive, but many are not emotionally mature enough to appreciate the consequences of their actions. Prostitution is another controversy that's mentioned in your textbook. It is the selling of sexual services. It is the world's oldest profession. There are many types of prostitution. At the top of the hierarchy, we have call girls, which are considered to be the elite prostitute. They are typically young, attractive, well-educated women who arrange their own dates with clients by telephone. The classified pages of any large city newspaper contain numerous ads for escort services, by which women and sometimes men offer both companionship and sex for a fee. In the middle are prostitutes who work in massage parlors or brothels under the control of managers. These sex workers have less choice about their clients. They receive less money for their services and get to keep no more than half of what they make. And then at the bottom of the sex worker hierarchy are your streetwalkers, which are men and women who work the streets of large cities. Typically, female streetwalkers are under control of male pimps who take most of their earnings, and many streetwalkers fall victim to violence from their pimps as well as clients. Now, there are many myths about rape, and I want to talk about rape for just a few minutes. Um, Although some people think rape is motivated only by a desire for sex, it is actually an expression of power. It's a violent act that uses sex to hurt, humiliate, or control another person. According to the official government definition, rape is the carnal knowledge of a female forcibly and against her will. Therefore, official rape statistics include only victims who are women, but men are also raped in perhaps 10% of all cases. Most men who rape men are not homosexual, they are heterosexuals who are motivated by desire not for sex, but to dominate another person. A common myth of date rape is that rape involves strangers. In reality, only about 30% of rapes fit this pattern. About 70% of rapes involve people who know one another. More often than not, they take place in familiar surroundings, especially the home. Another myth, often linked specifically to date rape, is the idea that a woman who has been raped must have done something to encourage the man and make him think she wanted to have sex. Perhaps the victim agreed to go out with the offender. Maybe she even invited him to her room. But of course, acting in this way no more justifies rape than it would any other kind of physical assault. So there are two main reasons why individuals choose not to report rapes. Many do go unreported. One is blaming the victim. And like I said, somehow the woman must have done something to encourage the man or make him think that she wanted to have sex. And the other reason is if a rapist were to go to trial, it is always the victim's reputation that comes under scrutiny.